What if the most feared man in Seoul decided you were the one thing he couldn't live without? For Mandisa and Kosi, a single moment of pride in the face of Danwoo Kim, the merciless mafia king, was all it took to shatter her peaceful life. She was supposed to break under his wrath, but instead, she became the one obsession he couldn't shake. Mandisa never imagined her quiet world in Seoul would collide with Danwoo Kim, the brutal kingpin who ruled the city's shadows. To love him was to risk her soul. To defy him was to invite ruin. But what ignites when loathing flares into something irresistible, and survival depends on the very man who threatens to consume her? The pulse of Seoul was a living thing at night, a rhythm of neon and motion. Inside Mandisa's kitchen, a small haven wedged between towering giants, the air was thick with the comforting aromas of bobo tea, chakalaka, and spices that whispered of a distant home. Mandisa smoothed her apron, setting down a plate of a magwinya before tapping the bell. Her cornrows were neat against her brow, her dark skin glowing under the warm lights. This restaurant was her heart. She was the chef, the host, the dreamer. The couple by the window needs more water, her waiter Minjun whispered, his eyes darting toward the back. Mandisa followed his gaze and felt the air grow cold. A group of men in impeccably dark suits had entered the room, their presence sucking the sound from it. Conversations died, forks froze. The man at their forefront didn't just occupy space, he owned it. Broad-shouldered, with a sharp jaw and hair swept back from a severe face. His suit was a testament to his power. Mandisa didn't need an introduction to know him. Danwoo Kim, a name spoken in hushed tones, a man whose reputation was a blade that cut through the city. They said he had no heart, that he erased those who displeased him without a second thought. Her stomach twisted, but she held her ground. This was her territory. Kim and his men settled into the largest booth, his guards scanning the room with dead-eyed precision. Mandisa took a steadying breath and approached, menus in hand. "Good evening. Welcome to Mandisa's kitchen." Her voice was calm, a stark contrast to the drumming in her chest. Kim's eyes lifted slowly to meet hers. They were black, depthless, and so cold she felt a chill. He said nothing. A flick of his wrist was the only command she received. Mandisa placed the menus down. "We have, bring me what you think is worthy of my time," Kim interrupted, his voice a low, controlled rumble. Mandisa's teeth clenched. It wasn't a request. She gave a tight nod. Of course. In the kitchen, her hands worked on autopilot, her mind racing. Why her? Why now? The diners were a sea of nervous whispers. Some looked ready to bolt, but no one dared to move. When she returned with a platter of her finest dishes, sampan beans, spicy peri-peri prawns, and fluffy vetcock, Kim didn't thank her. He simply tasted, each bite measured, each swallow an appraisal. The entire restaurant watched, holding its breath. After a few mouthfuls, he leaned back, dabbed his mouth with a napkin, and with a sudden, violent sweep of his arm, sent the plate crashing to the floor. Ceramic shattered, food splattering across the clean tiles. A collective gasp echoed. Mandisa went still. Kim's voice was a venomous whisper. "You should be grateful I even considered your food." Minjun stifled a sob. Patrons stared at their laps. This was the way of things. You bowed your head, you accepted the humiliation, and you were thankful to see another sunrise. But Mandisa was not built for bowing. Heat flooded her cheeks, her fists curling at her sides. She stepped forward, the crunch of broken plate beneath her shoes the only sound. She stopped at the edge of his table, her chin high. "You will pay for that," she stated, her voice like stone. Kim's head tilted, his obsidian eyes narrowing to slits. "What did you say to me?" "You heard me," Mandisa shot back. "You ate my food. You pay for it. You don't get to break what's mine and walk away like you own the ground beneath you." The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. One of his men lunged to his feet, face contorted with rage. "You disrespectful? Sit down." Kim's command was soft, but it cracked through the air. The man instantly obeyed. Kim rose, his height and presence an avalanche bearing down on her. He leaned in so close she could see the pale line of a scar cutting through his eyebrow. "You have a fire in you," he murmured, his breath ghosting her ear. "But fire can be extinguished." Mandisa's heart was a wild drum, but she didn't flinch. "And steel can rust," she countered. "Don't test me, Danwoo Kim." Speaking his full name sent another shockwave through the room. No one ever did. For a heartbeat, genuine surprise flickered in his cold gaze. His lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You dare." "I do," she said, her dark eyes holding his without fear. She snatched the bill from the counter, scrawled the amount, and slapped it down on the table between them. "That's 35,000 won. Cash or card?" The tension was a pane of glass about to shatter. Kim's men were coiled springs, waiting for the signal. Had she signed her own death warrant? Kim studied her, his gaze lingering, dissecting. His face was a mask, but his eyes held a new, unsettling light. Not just anger, not just curiosity, something more. He didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he closed the final inch between them, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "You will regret this, little fire." Then he turned and walked out, his men falling into step behind him like ghosts. The door chimed, a ridiculously gentle sound in the wake of the storm he left behind. The moment they were gone, the room erupted. "Is she insane? She talked back to Danwoo Kim. She's dead." Minjun rushed to her side, his whole body trembling. "What have you done?" Mandisa knelt and began gathering the sharp pieces of the plate, her face a picture of forced calm. "What needed to be done," she replied softly. But as she dropped the shards into the trash, she felt the truth settle deep in her bones. Tonight, she had looked a king in the eye and refused to kneel. And kings do not forget such slights. The next morning, Mandisa's kitchen was blanketed in a tense silence. The usual morning chatter was muted, as if fear had dampened the very sound. Mandisa arranged freshly baked megwinya, but the line was non-existent. Minjun lingered by the register, his eyes constantly flitting to the door. "Do you think he'll come back?" he finally asked, his voice thin. Mandisa paused, a towel in her hands. She hadn't slept. Kim's face, his voice, "You will regret this," had played on a loop in her mind. She straightened her shoulders. "Let him." Minjun stared at her in disbelief. "People die for less. Do you have a death wish?" Mandisa offered a weary smile. "I didn't come to Seoul to be afraid." But inside, a knot of dread tightened. She knew enough of this city to understand that Kim's power wasn't an illusion. It was a force that could erase a life without a trace. Before the week was out, she learned exactly how that force felt. It started with the suppliers. Her usual contact for spices and goat meat called, his voice stammering. "I'm sorry, Mandisa, we can't serve you anymore." "Why not?" she pressed, her grip tightening on the phone. A long pause, then a sigh. "Orders from the top. Please don't call again." The line went dead. By lunch, 2 more had canceled. By evening, the company that supplied her with cleaning goods and napkins had severed ties. Mandisa stood in her kitchen, her hands gripping the stainless steel counter. The shelves, Once full, were already looking bare. It didn't take a genius to connect the dots. Dan-woo Kim. He didn't need to return with shouts or shattered plates. His silence was a more effective weapon, his reach more terrifying. When she locked up that night, a black sedan was parked across the street, its tinted windows hiding its occupants, but she felt their gaze on her as she turned the key. A shiver traced her spine, but she lifted her chin and walked home, refusing to hurry. Days bled into one another, and business withered. Her regulars found other places to eat, mumbling weak apologies. Mandisa knew the truth. They were afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Still, she refused to close. Every morning, she cooked with what little she had. Every evening, she wiped down empty tables. And every night, the black sedan was there, watching. One evening, after securing the door, Mandisa turned and found a man in a black suit standing directly behind her. She stumbled back, a gasp catching in her throat. "Who are you?" The man gave a shallow bow. "A messenger. My employer requests your presence." Her hands balled into fists. "And if I refuse?" The man's expression didn't change. "Then we will wait. But my employer is not a patient man." Mandisa drew a sharp breath, her lungs tight with fear, but she would not be summoned like a dog. She straightened her shoulders. "Tell your employer that if he wants to see me, he can come here himself." The man's eyes widened a fraction before he bowed again and retreated to the sedan. Mandisa stood alone in the cooling night, her legs weak, but her resolve burning bright. The retaliation escalated. One afternoon, she arrived to find the windows smashed. Glass littered the floor like diamonds. Chairs were overturned and the walls were defaced with ugly red symbols she didn't understand but knew were a message from Kim's world. Min-jun cried when he saw the damage. "We have to close, Mandisa. This isn't worth your life." Mandisa stood amidst the wreckage, her fists shaking. For a moment, despair threatened to swallow her, but then she remembered her grandmother's voice. She was a freedom fighter during the apartheid years in South Africa. She always told her, "Stand tall, Mandisa. The world will bow to you if you refuse to bend." She picked up a broom. "We clean this up. We open tomorrow." Min-jun looked at her as if she were mad. Perhaps she was. But to surrender was to let him win, and Mandisa had not come from Soweto to Seoul to lose. That night, as she was scrubbing the last of the red paint from the wall, the door opened without a sound. The click of polished shoes on the floorboards made her freeze. Slowly, she turned. Dan-woo Kim stood there, alone. No guards, no entourage, just him, filling the doorway as if he commanded all the shadows in the room. He stepped inside, the streetlight carving his long silhouette across the floor. His suit was a slash of perfect black. Mandisa straightened, the wet rag clutched in her hand like a shield. "Come to see if I'm finally broken?" Kim's lips curved into a faint cold smile. "Not yet." "Remarkable." His gaze traveled over the repaired windows, the pile of swept-up glass. Then his eyes found hers, sharp and probing. "You could have made this easy," he said, his voice soft. "All you had to do was bow." But instead, he gestured at the cleaned-up mess. "You scrub." Mandisa's breath was even, but her pulse raced. "Because this is my home, and I won't let you or anyone else take it from me." Kim took a step closer. The air grew thick, charged with an unspoken current. His eyes held hers, inscrutable yet intensely focused. "You aren't afraid of me," he observed. Mandisa swallowed, her throat dry. Fear was a living thing inside her, but she would not feed it. "Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. But I won't let you see it." For a long moment they stood in silence, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Then, unexpectedly, Kim let out a low, dark chuckle that vibrated down to her bones. "You are either the bravest woman I have ever met, or the most foolish." He leaned in, so close she could smell the sandalwood and cold night air on his skin. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I can't decide which I find more compelling. With that, he turned and left, the door clicking shut behind him. Mandisa stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had expected rage, more destruction, but what she saw in his eyes unsettled her far more. Because in that charged silence, she wasn't sure if Dan-Woo Kim wanted to ruin her or if he had just found his new reason for being. The morning after Kim's visit, Mandisa woke with the memory of his whisper etched into her mind. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, her heart a tangled mess. I can't decide which I find more compelling. She shook her head, trying to dislodge the thought. He was a storm in human form, a man who broke things for sport. She had built her life on stability and hard work, not on dancing with typhoons. Yet a nervous flutter in her chest refused to settle. Something had changed in him last night. She had seen it, a spark of genuine intrigue that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with possession. And being possessed by Dan-Woo Kim was the most dangerous fate she could imagine. At the restaurant, she tried to focus on the routine, on the cooking, on survival. But she noticed them immediately, new customers who didn't fit, men and women who ordered little, ate less, and watched everything, their eyes missing nothing. Spies, reporting back to him. Minju noticed too. "Mandisa," he whispered, his hand shaking as he cleared a table. "Those people, they're here for him." Mandisa forced a tight smile. They'll get bored eventually. But the words felt hollow. That evening, as she walked home through the narrow alley behind her apartment, she heard footsteps echoing hers. She stopped. The footsteps stopped. Her blood ran cold. She spun around. Dan-Woo Kim was there, leaning against the brick wall as if he'd been part of it all along. He wore a simple black trench coat, his hair slightly messy, but his presence was no less overwhelming. "Are you following me now?" Her voice was sharper than she intended. His lips quirked. "Following is such a crude term. I'm ensuring your safety." "My safety?" she repeated, incredulous. He pushed off the wall, his movements fluid and predatory. "You interest me, Mandisa." Mandisa stiffened. "I didn't ask to interest you." "That's the thing about a storm," Kim murmured, closing the distance between them. "It doesn't ask for permission to rage. It just does, and everything in its path is forever changed." Her breath hitched, but she held her ground. "If you're here to threaten me, save your breath." "Threaten?" His voice was deceptively soft. "No, Mandisa. If I wanted to threaten you, you'd know it." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Then what do you want?" His eyes scanned her face, slow, deliberate, as if memorizing it. He said, his voice barely a whisper, "The truth is, I don't know yet." The admission chilled her more than any direct threat. His presence became a constant. She felt him in the city's pulse, a man in a black coat watching from a market stall, the fleeting glimpse of a familiar figure disappearing into a subway crowd. Sometimes late at night, she would look out her kitchen window and see him standing under a street lamp across from a restaurant, speaking on his phone or tossing some nuts in the air and catching it with his mouth. He never approached, never spoke. He just watched, like she captivated all his attention. And somehow, that silent observation was more unnerving than any confrontation.
Her customer base shrank to almost nothing. Whispers spread that her restaurant was either under the mafia's protection or its curse. Either way, people stayed away. The empty chairs didn't hurt as much as the isolation. One night, after another day of silence, she sat at a table and let her head fall into her hands. The weight of it all felt crushing. "Deers don't become you." Her head snapped up. Kim stood in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted by the dim light from the street. He had entered without a sound. Mandisa shot to her feet, hastily wiping her cheeks. "You?" "Me?" he echoed, stepping inside. "Why do you sound so surprised?" "Because civilized people announce themselves." A dark smirk touched his lips. "Do I look civilized to you?" She exhaled sharply, crossing her arms. "What are you doing here?" He studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense. "Because I wanted to see you." The sheer audacity made her laugh, a bitter, broken sound. "You're trying to destroy my life, and now you show up because you wanted to?" His expression didn't change, but his eyes held a flicker of something unreadable. "I told you, you interest me. No one talks to me the way you do." "Maybe that's because everyone else values their life," she retorted. Silence hung between them, thick and heavy. Then, Kim chuckled. It wasn't a cold sound this time. It was low, genuine, and it disarmed her completely. Mandisa blinked. She had never heard him laugh like that. "Do you know how long it's been," he said, almost to himself, "since someone had the courage to be honest with me?" She clenched her jaw, refusing to be swayed. "Maybe you should surround yourself with more honest people." Kim's gaze locked onto hers, intense and searching. He took a final step, so close she could feel the warmth of his body. "You're a storm, Mandisa," he whispered, his lips curving into a dangerous smile. "And I've been living in a drought for far too long." Her breath caught in her throat. For the first time, she felt a shift within herself, not of fear or anger, but of a terrifying, undeniable pull. After he left, Mandisa sat alone in the dark restaurant for hours, her thoughts a whirlwind. She should despise him. He was ruin and chaos. Yet her fingers trembled, remembering the way his eyes had softened, how his laugh had sounded like a man rediscovering a part of his soul he thought was lost. It frightened her more than any threat, because she realized with a sinking heart that Dan-Woo Kim was no longer just testing her limits. He was weaving her into the very fabric of his world, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to tear herself free. It was past midnight when she closed. The streets were empty, silent except for the whisper of the wind. She turned the key in the lock and froze. 2 black cars glided to the curb. Her heart plummeted. 3 men emerged from the first car, their suits a declaration of their allegiance. One bowed. "Mandisa Shi, our employer insists on your company." Mandisa's grip on her keys turned her knuckles white. "And if I refuse?" The man's face was a blank slate. "It is not a request." For a wild second, she considered running. But where? He was the city, and the city belonged to him. With a slow exhale, she squared her shoulders and got into the car. The drive was silent. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white. Mandisa kept her hands folded, hiding their tremor. They arrived at a secluded modern fortress overlooking the Han River. It was all sharp angles and impenetrable glass. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of expensive leather and whiskey. And there he was. Dan-Woo Kim sat in a low leather chair, a glass in his hand, his gaze pinning her the moment she entered. A slow, possessive smile touched his lips. "You came," he said. Mandisa glared. "Did I have a choice?" "Choice," he swirled the amber liquid. "You've done nothing but make choices, Mandisa. You chose to get in the car. You chose to walk in here. You chose to face me instead of breaking. And you chose to ruin me," she fired back. His mask widened. "Did I? Yes, you cut off my supplies. You scared my customers. You vandalized my restaurant, all because I stood up to you." For a second, his mask slipped, his eyes flashing with something raw. Then he leaned back, a strange amusement in his gaze. "Do you know," he said softly, "that no one has stood up to me in over 10 years? Mandisa's chest ached. "Maybe they have more sense." "Or perhaps," Kim murmured, setting his glass down with a quiet click, "they simply lack your spine." He stood, closing the distance between them with deliberate steps. The air grew thick with each movement until he was standing before her, his presence overwhelming. "You captivate me, Mandisa," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Do you know what I do with things that captivate me?" She swallowed, her mouth dry. "You destroy them." His lips curved. "Sometimes. "And sometimes," he whispered, "I keep them so close they become a part of me." Her heart raced, every instinct screaming to flee, yet her feet were rooted to the spot, her body thrumming with a confusing mix of terror and something else. "What do you want from me, Kim?" she demanded, her voice barely steady. He said nothing for a long moment, his dark eyes burning into hers, seeing everything. Then he leaned down, his words a whisper meant only for her. "Everything." Mandisa's breath caught. "You can't have me." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Can I?" "No." The word was a final, desperate weapon. And for the first time, Kim's smirk vanished. His expression darkened, his jaw tightening, not with anger, but with something deeper, more primal. Obsession.
He didn't touch her. He didn't lock her away. He let her go. His men drove her back through the sleeping city, her mind reeling. But as she lay in bed hours later, staring into the darkness, she knew the truth. He hadn't released her. He had pulled her into the eye of his hurricane, and now she wasn't just fighting for her restaurant. She was fighting for her soul, for the right to remain herself in a world he was determined to reshape around her. And she was terrified. She was already in too deep. The days following his late-night visit began to shift in a way Mandisa didn't trust. The first sign was a call from her main supplier. "Mandisa, we can deliver your order this afternoon. In fact, we have a surplus. Our deepest apologies for the misunderstanding." The word misunderstanding was heavy with unspoken fear. One by one, the other vendors returned, their voices laced with a new, deferential respect. The black sedan still appeared, but it no longer felt like a threat. It was a presence, a silent acknowledgement. Then the gifts started. A cascade of deep pink proteas. Then a case of the most exquisite South African wines she could never afford appeared at her door. A set of professional-grade pots and pans, the kind she had admired in a chef's catalog, were delivered with no note. She tried to refuse them, to send them back, but the delivery men would just bow and retreat, terrified to disobey their true orders. Her stubbornness flared. She donated the wine to a local community center and gave the pans to a struggling culinary student. She would not be bought. His pursuit became more personal, more relentless. He didn't confront her, he courted her. Danwoo Kim began to appear in the daylight. He would come to the restaurant in the quiet hour between lunch and dinner, always alone, and sit at the same corner table. He didn't order the menu, he ordered her. "Make me something you loved as a child," he would say, his voice a low command that had softened into a request. And so she did, serving him pokoko with a defiant clatter of the bowl. He ate it, his expression unreadable, but he finished every last crumb. "You're trying to wear me down," she accused him one afternoon, her arms crossed as she watched him sip the sour milk porridge. "I am," he admitted without shame, his dark eyes lifting to hers. "I am learning you, Mandisa and Kosi, and I have never studied anything more fascinating." "I am not one of your business deals," she retorted. "No," he agreed quietly, setting his spoon down. "You are the opposite of a deal. A deal has terms. You are a mystery I am desperate to solve." Her customers slowly trickled back, but now they were a different crowd. Well-dressed business people, quiet couples who spoke in hushed tones, all part of his world, all there on his unspoken command to support her, to fill her seats. It infuriated her, as it saved her. She was thriving under the protection of the very man who had tried to break her. The irony was a bitter pill. Her continued resistance seemed only to fuel his obsession. He was a man who had taken everything by force his entire life, and now he was faced with the one thing he couldn't take, her willing heart. And he had fallen, madly and completely, for the beautiful, stubborn African queen who refused to be scared. The first snow of winter dusted Seoul in a blanket of quiet white. The streets gleamed and the neon signs painted the ice in pastel hues. Mandisa's kitchen was not just reborn, It was flourishing. The new windows, paid for by an anonymous benefactor, gleamed. The scent of spices was strong once more. But even as she served a bubbling pot of mshusho to a group of laughing friends, she could feel the wake of his gaze, a constant warm pressure at the back of her neck. The relentless pressure had lifted, replaced by a patient, terrifyingly focused devotion. It was near midnight when she closed. The snow fell in soft, lazy flakes. She wrapped her coat tightly and turned to lock the door, her breath catching in her throat. He was there. Dan-woo Kim stood across the street, alone, his black hair and coat dusted with snow. He looked less like a kingpin and more like a lonely statue. Their eyes met through the gentle fall of white. Mandisa's heart stuttered. "What do you want now, Kim?" she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. He didn't speak. He simply crossed the street, his footsteps silent in the fresh snow. When he stopped before her, he was so close she could see the snowflakes clinging to his dark eyelashes. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, black velvet box. Mandisa's eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. "This is a joke." "It is not," Kim stated, his voice low and unwavering. "I have ended men for far less than the disrespect you showed me. You shamed me, you defied me, you looked me in the eye and called me out, and yet," his voice cracked, a rare show of vulnerability, "I have never wanted anything more than to belong to you. I'm lost without you, stubborn Miss Mandisa and Kosi. Please help me find my way home. Home to your heart," he said desperately. Mandisa stood utterly still, the world narrowing to this man, this snow, this moment. The Mafia King, the most feared man in Korea, was lowering himself to one knee in the snow. The box opened. Inside was a simple, elegant band of platinum. No ostentation, simple, just like Mandisa. Pure, undeniable intent. "I can give you the world," he whispered, his eyes burning with a fierce light. "I can give you power beyond your dreams. I can lay the wealth of this city at your feet, but none of it means anything if I cannot have you. So I am asking you, Mandisa, don't be my conquest. Be my partner. Be my queen." Time seemed to stop. The city held its breath. The only sound was the frantic beating of her own heart. "Kim," her voice trembled, "you don't even know what you're asking for. I'm not part of your world. I don't want your violence." "Then I will leave it behind," he said, his voice fierce, raw. "You will be my world, and if I must burn my old life to the ground to build a new one with you, I will light the match myself." Tears welled in her eyes, freezing on her lashes. She had fought him with every fiber of her being, and here he was, on his knees, offering her not just his heart, but his surrender. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "And if I say no?" Kim's jaw tightened, his gaze unwavering. "Then I will spend every single day of my life earning your yes."
The raw sincerity shattered her last defense. Slowly, Mandisa stepped forward. Her hand rose, her fingertips gently brushing the cold skin of his cheek. He closed his eyes, a shudder running through him at her touch, like a man feeling sunlight for the first time in years. "Dan-woo Kim," she whispered, "you scare me. You infuriate me. But you," she swallowed her tears, "you make me feel more alive than I have ever felt." His eyes flew open, desperate hope blazing in their dark depths. "Is that a yes?" "Yes," she breathed, "on one condition. Anything." "You love me as your equal," she said, her voice firm. "Not as your trophy, not as your possession, as Mandisa, the woman who will stand with you, not behind you, and not beneath you." A moment of profound silence passed between them. Then slowly, Dan-woo Kim smiled. It was not the cold, calculated smirk she knew, but a true, heartfelt, vulnerable smile. "It would be my greatest honor, Mandisa." He slid the ring onto her finger. The platinum felt cool, then warm against her skin. And when he rose and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that melted the snow around them, Mandisa knew the king had not conquered her. He had knelt, and in doing so, they had found a new kingdom together. If this story of fierce pride and dangerous love captivated you, show us some love by liking, subscribing, and ringing that bell so you're always in the loop for our next tale. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Mandisa and Kim's turbulent journey. Until next time, stay enchanted.